Namaste. The light and love of the divine in me honors and greets the light and love of the divine in each and every one of you here this morning on our Sunday gathering. This is the Awakening Ways spiritual community. This is what our Sunday gathering looks like at the moment. And it is wonderful. It is special. It is holy. It is divine. It is all things good. And we're so glad that you're with us here this morning. Our community is a New Thought community in the lineage of Dr. Ernest Holmes. And Ernest Holmes was called the Great Synthesizer. He was able to take a look at all of the great faiths of the world. And he noticed that there were these commonalities that ran through all of these great faiths, commonalities in beliefs. And he took these ideas, he took these strands, he took these threads, and he wove them together in a way that allows us as a New Thought spiritual community to take those commonalities and study them, because this is what the truth of spirituality was and is, that runs through all faiths. And so when you come to a New Thought community, you know that you will get quotes or teachings from the Buddha. You will get quotes and teachings from the Bhagavad Gita. You will get quotes and teachings from the Tao Te Ching. You will get quotes and teachings from Jesus, because these are the wisdoms and the truths that run through these different faiths. We are fortunate in that way because our teaching is rich and full and enables us to kind of connect with the world in a different way than most spiritual traditions do. We feel very fortunate in that way. I'm sorry, I have a little creature here that's distracting me just a little bit. So we believe that there's one power and one presence, and that one power and that presence and that one life and that one mind runs in and through all of life. That is what existence is. It is the expression of this one power and presence. And what that means for us is that everything is connected. There is no separation. There is no me and you. There is only this wholeness of being. And we all live within this. We all move within this, and we are all extensions of that one life, that one mind, that one power and presence. Another beautiful teaching that allows us to connect and to feel part of the entire world and universe. So we're grateful that you're here, and we're grateful that you've chosen to be part of this community this morning. And if you want to know more about what this teaching is about, we offer classes here. They're kind of Zoomy at the moment, and we haven't done a lot of them, but we have one coming up. We have classes, we have meditations, we have opportunities for people to come together and pray together. Wonderful, wonderful opportunities to expand and to deepen into that understanding of who and what we are as extensions of that one mind and that one life. We're so grateful that you're here. We always like to say that we think that you chose wisely, just because we are so wonderful. But we're glad that you're here. And whatever it is that brought you here this morning, and wherever you go when this morning is over, for this perfect moment in time, welcome home. We've been waiting for you. Thank you for being here. A beautiful morning is ahead. Timber Hawkeye is with us, and you know, Timber represents that that reflection of what New Thought is, where we honor and so deeply appreciate the teachings of other spiritual faiths. And he comes from a Buddhist background, and then he has moved and expanded even more. And so we always gain a lot when Timber comes. He gives us so much food for thought and food for heart. So we're grateful that he's here this morning. Also, a reminder that after the gathering, when we have finished with the service, we will be having our annual meeting. we hope that this is, no, we're not, I hope, no, we're not using that word. We know that this meeting this morning is going to be concise and brief, and will not take up much time, but it's a good opportunity for everyone to just find out what's happening, what kind of financial state we're in, where we're planning to go from here, in terms of uh, what the community looks like. So just join us and find out what's happening, find out what's going on. You're free to ask questions at the end if there's anything that's on your mind. So join us immediately following the gathering. We hope to see a lot of you there. And so with that, let's just move into the beautiful offerings that are for us here this morning. And I always like to begin by reading from Ernest Holmes. And so I invite you to just settle back in your chair and just relax. And if you're comfortable, close your eyes and just take a couple of deep, relaxing breaths. And feel yourself just sink into those seats where you are, and just relax your shoulders, your neck, your arms, just relaxing. And listen to these words from Ernest Holmes. I now withdraw my thoughts from the world of confusion and realize that in the one universal mind, which is the mind of God, there is quietude, peace, order. This is reality. I know that life is real, worthwhile. I know that no effort toward unity with that which is real, that which is true, is ever lost. Where I am, there is peace, order, joy, harmony, for I am one with reality. I enter deeply into peace and feel its strength and power now. And breathing into that truth, I recognize that one power and that one truth, that one peace, that harmony, that balance, that reality itself is living in me and as me, expressing at this very moment, in and as me. This is the truth of everyone. This is this truth of everyone here in this gathering here this morning, that we are all these incredible, divine beings of light, beings of truth, emanations of that one life, expressions of that one life, living, moving, and having our being as that one life. And knowing that this is the truth, I know that everything that is good lives within us. Everything that is wise and holy lives within us and comes forth from us. And we open to receive more and more good, more holiness, more wisdom. And so as this morning unfolds, I accept for all of us that this music that comes forth this morning moves into our bodies, into the very soul of our being. And those vibrations awaken us and soothe us and lift us into that higher place of being. I know that the words that Timber speaks this morning come from a deep, deep place of consciousness. that it is spirit, it is the divine, it is light, it is whatever we choose to call it, moving in him and through him for us this morning. And we are so very grateful for all that we are about to receive. I am grateful for each and every person, for every consciousness that is here, that is sharing its own life and love. For truly we are one in this perfect place and time. And knowing that this is true, accepting this truth for all of us, I just let it be so. And celebrating that truth, I simply say, and so it is. Amen.
Everybody's looking for an answer. Everybody's looking for a cure. Everybody's looking for protection. Everybody wants to be secure. We got a war on terror, a war on hate, a war on unemployment, a war on mortgage rates, war to end war, war to bring us peace, war to stop the madness. It's time for this to cease. Visualize peace in the middle of the midst, peace in the darkest of the darkest night, peace in the high of a pandemic. Oh, visualize peace. Everybody's looking for a reason. Everybody's looking for a cure. Everybody wants to know the answer. Everybody wants to feel secure. We got a war on hunger, a war on AIDS, war on unemployment, the war cry never fades. War between white and black, a war to make us cry, war to dump the sadness. I know it's gonna be alright. Visualize peace in the middle of the Mideast, peace in the darkest of the darkest night, peace when you think that you can't go on. Visualize peace. Whoa, 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 whoa. I gotta know, gotta know. Visualize peace. I know it's happening.
I am regularly invited to speak with various congregations across the country, and they often ask me for the title of my talk in advance so they can include it in their newsletters and announcements. But I rarely know what I'm going to talk about until I do. And I find that offering a title ahead of time pressures me into a confinement of sorts that feels unnatural. So I'm really grateful that today I can talk about whatever is coming up for me, which surprisingly enough is an old song by Clay Davidson called Unconditional. And it happens to be the only song I've ever heard by him, and not for many years. And yet it's been playing on a loop in my head all morning. but don't worry, I'm not going to sing it. I'm going to share the lyrics with you as well as the realization I just had. And although I know this song by heart because it made me cry a few times, I'm going to look up the lyrics real quick and make sure I don't screw it up. I know the first half is when he comes home drunk while he's still living with his parents. And the second part is about him and his wife later on. So here we go. Daddy waited up in the kitchen by himself, and I came stumbling in that night with liquor on my breath. He said, "Son, I know you live here, but this is still my home. It's my way or the highway." So I said, "All right, I'm gone." And before I slammed that door, I said, "I hate you." But he just shook his head and said, "Okay, but you can't stop my love for you. It will be here. That's a given. As long as I'm living on this earth, one thing is true. You can turn away, forget me, curse my name, but love won't let me let you go. Son, always know my love is unconditional." Well, life is like a circle, and it's slowly turning on itself. And it took losing you to finally know how Daddy felt. We stood in this bedroom a year ago today, hanging on to pride and anger as we threw our love away. And before you slammed that door, you said, "I hate you." And I just shook my head and said, "Okay." And tonight, if only you could hear me say that you can't stop my love for you. It will be here. That's a given. As long as I am living on this earth, one thing is true. You can turn away, forget me, curse my name, but love won't let me let you go. Always know that my love is unconditional. I didn't even need to look at the lyrics. I did remember it by heart. I wonder if unconditional love is redundant, meaning if love has conditions, is it really love at all? I am all about boundaries, so I can love someone unconditionally, but maintaining a relationship with them can most certainly have conditions. If love has conditions, is it love at all? Unconditional love is, I think, what I've always searched for my whole life, and we all perhaps want. But when I say the word love, each one of us has a different idea of it, a different idea of love forming in our minds, a different idea of what it means. And the way we understand it, it's not necessarily what I mean when I say it. You may even be familiar with the concept of the 5 love languages. I think I know those by heart as well, but I'm going to look them up real quick just because I don't want to screw that up. Give me 1 second. Gotta love Google. Okay. And I'm pretty sure I know them, but in short, the 5 love languages are words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, gifts, and physical touch. The 5 love languages are typically touted as the love language that we understand, which means people with words of affirmation as a love language, for example, they need to constantly hear, "I love you," and receive verbal acknowledgments of affection, compliments, words of appreciation, verbal encouragement, even frequent digital communication like texting or through social media engagement in the form of likes and thumbs up. This isn't my personal love language at all, but if that's the love language of someone I love, and that's how they can know I love them, then it's up to me to learn it and make an effort to speak in a language that they understand. I remember an ex once told me, "I love you. Know this until I tell you otherwise." I think that may be when I started not needing to hear it. I just kept an eye out for it to see it in other ways. Quality time is another love language, for example. And I love people with quality time as a love language. They feel most adored, shall we say, when someone wants to spend time with them. They appreciate active listening, eye contact, and other people making time for their relationship. I get that, especially when everyone seems so obsessed with being busy. it means a lot to me when someone makes time for me, or maybe that's because I generally value my time so much that when someone offers me theirs, it's the equivalent to being handed $1 million if money meant as much. If your love language is acts of service, it's another love language, which I've learned is definitely my priority love language, my primary love language. Then you value when someone goes out of their way to make your life easier. To me, it's priceless, whether it's making you or bringing you food or something as simple as watching you struggle and asking how they can help. To me, that act of service is thinking ahead, thinking to include you. It's the we instead of me. To me, that is my primary love language. I've never felt less loved than when I was carrying multiple heavy grocery bags in both hands and trying to unlock the door. And my friend was standing next to me texting, waiting for me to open the door. And I remember being so furious, but also learning that what I needed to do was explain my frustration, not express it, and communicate my unmet need, my love language in that moment, not lash out, which would have only increased the space between us. Another love language is gifts, and that's pretty straightforward. But it's not always about monetary value in the form of diamond earrings necessarily, but the symbolic thought behind the gift, be it a drawing that your kid made for you or a very personal present that took a lot of time and consideration. In many ways, it's the opposite of my love language. The whole gift giving thing, maybe because I'm a minimalist and I just don't want any more stuff. I don't know. And finally, there is physical touch, where people feel loved when they receive physical affection. And that includes hugs, kisses, holding hands, cuddling, physical intimacy, where there's a powerful emotional connection for people with this love language. Again, not me. This 6 feet apart distance between us isn't large enough, but that's intentional in many ways. Many years ago, a friend once told me that even though everything in her life was going so well, her health was good, yoga practice was steady, nutrition was balanced, great sleep, steady work, she still longed for what she referred to as the weight of a man on top of her. Not intercourse or anything like that, but the physical connection. This was her love language, but before we knew the 5 love languages or how to express this stuff. And when I hung up the phone with her, I thought to myself, how can I make sure that I never get to that point in my life where everything is so good, and yet I still feel like something is missing simply because there's nobody in my bed? And that's when I did a complete 180, and I switched from being overly affectionate with everyone I knew to not only being celibate for so many years, but also abstaining from any and all physical contact for over a decade, with no hugs, no kisses, nothing more intimate than a fist bump, on the volleyball court. Among many other things that this taught me was how to be intimate without physical contact through vulnerability and transparency, for example. And so I'm not confident that I would have learned all these extra tools had I not done that experiment. Again, the 5 love languages that are typically touted are told us that they're the love languages that we understand. But I think that it's also how we communicate our love or express our love for others. So fast forward another decade, and now I'm traveling the country, giving book talks at churches, much like this one, but this was in person, not over Zoom. And one time I give a talk, and a sweet little old lady comes up to me after the talk, and she says, "Can I give you a hug?" To which I said, no, because I was still not hugging. But my friend asked me, when you say no, who are you serving? And that really hit me between the eyes. She was totally right. I was so insistent on love being expressed the way I want it that I downright rejected anything else. We tend to be, and we need to be bilingual and multilingual, not just have one love language, but we still prioritize one form of expression over another. If we're emotionally intelligent enough, we get to know our audience, so to speak, and adjust our love expression depending on the person, instead of insisting on showing our love the way we know how, but rather in the way they can best understand it. Now, I mostly love, I think, through food. And most people love food, so I'm generally okay with that. It's an act of service, and that is my primary love language. But I had a good friend once whose mother was never emotionally present when she was growing up. So in lieu of quality time together, which was my friend's love language, her mom would shower her with food. And that turned into a whole eating disorder, and that's a completely different story. My point is, my friend was visiting me one time and for a whole week, and I just kept offering her food because that's my love language. And until and most people I think would appreciate that, but she practically yelled at me. She said, "Stop loving me through food." The good part is that she was able to interpret that that's what I was doing. That was my love language. I was trying to express my love for her. And she wasn't doubting my love, but she was inviting me to expand my vocabulary, so to speak, and learn a new love language so that I can adjust. Anyway, since this is a fellowship of sorts, a congregation, let's talk about how this ties into God's love, which is what I think about when I think of unconditional love, like in that song, where we can curse God's name and even walk away from God, and yet God's love for us doesn't diminish in any way. As the song said, it'll be here, that's a given. As long as I'm living on this earth, one thing is true. You can turn away and forget me, curse my name, but love won't let me let you go. My love is unconditional. And we are no less lovable or worthy of love despite what we think of ourselves, meaning it's not for us to decide. I remember posting a picture of myself online holding a really big sign that said, "My God loves everybody." And it was merely to get people to wonder, if their God doesn't, then is it possible there is more than one God, or that their definition of love is somehow different from my own? And if their God was different, why is their God so judgmental? All that aside, what about how we love God? How do we express that love? For so many years, I admit I was extremely judgmental of other people who only loved God through words of affirmation, by praying or, praising God, and yet offering no acts of service, which is my primary love language, making words of affirmation meaningless. So I would see people praising God and all that, but their behavior didn't express that love for God or from God, if that makes any sense at all. But this isn't about me or my love language. It's about God. And if God's love language for us is unconditional, whether we express our love through praise or through offerings, physically being in a church or through acts of service, it's all love indeed, not in theory. So it's never my place to judge somebody else's love for God or how they choose to express it. I think it's my job, our job, to love others the way God loves us, unconditionally. Imagine going through life where we don't only say namaste to people with whom we agree or like, but we say it while thinking in our heads, "You can turn away and forget me, curse my name, but love won't let me let you go. My love is unconditional." That's my invitation for you today. Figure out what your love language is, how you express it, how you understand it, so you can start seeing acts of love all around you, and maybe even make every one of your own actions an act of love indeed. That is to say, love yourself, love God, and love one another. Namaste.
Timber, do you want to open it up from?
It's up to you if you want to open it up for questions or discussion. I don't know how much time we have. That's just what I had.
Okay.
Well,
We can open it up for a couple of minutes.
Okay.
well, let's just see if anybody has a
If anybody has a question.
Questions, we're taking questions.
Because clearly, if you have a question, I can Google and answer real quick.
Yeah.
That was really good.
That was good.
It just came to me, and I'm telling you, that song is playing on a loop in my head, and it's strange. It's a country song. It's the only song I've ever heard by him, and I cried so much the first time I heard it, because that first part with his dad, when his dad tells him, "You can turn away, forget me, you can curse my name, you know," and when you slam the door and say, "I hate you," and he just shook his head and said, "Okay." I just started crying, because my parents disowned me for so many years because they didn't approve of who I loved. And the last words I said to my father for so many years was, "F you." And I stormed out the door. And for so many years, that was the last thing I said to him, until I decided, I don't want those to be the last words I say to him. And so I'm going to go see him after all these years. And if he still turns me away, and if he still wants nothing to do with me, that's on him. I just don't want those words to be the last words I ever say to him. And if he still doesn't want anything to do with me, I can say essentially, "Namaste, I love you. You can turn away and forget me, but love won't let me let you go." And then, walk away then, and then think I would feel better perhaps walking away than those being the last words I say to him. So when I heard that song, I think it just busted open this void that I've had since those years of just wanting that unconditional love. And I'm reminded of the story when a student asks her teacher, she says, I feel discouraged. What should I do? And the teacher says, encourage others. So I think in wanting unconditional love, the answer is offer it. Offer unconditional love, and that's how you will find it, and perhaps maybe not even need it in return, because it just fills that void, so to speak. My friend said there's a God-shaped hole in our hearts, and no amount of money or validation or sex or drugs will fill that void. Only it's a God-shaped hole, and only God fills that hole. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes.
But
I had a friend in early recovery that said, "There's a God-shaped hole in my soul where the ice cold wind blows through." And that really that really moved me. It still does when I think about it.
Yeah, because we try so many things to, like, fitting a circle in a square and whatnot, and sometimes things come close, but they don't quite fit. Like when you try to undo a screwdriver with a butter knife, like it could work, but it doesn't quite fit the way God's love does, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Does anybody else have anything?
I just had a quick question. So I try not to spend too much time on social media. I'm not a big fan, but every once in a while I get drawn in, and I notice like there's a lot of hatred on social media, and like I see a lot of comments that are just cruel and hateful, and like wishing bad upon other people. And I'm just curious, we're talking about love, and I'm just curious how you hold space for those people who are wishing awful things on other human beings, and generally it's because they just don't agree with them, or but I read some of these things, and again, I try not to, but I get drawn in, and it's like it's really upsetting sometimes to hear some of these comments.
Well, I think it's through that understanding, that same thing that upsets you when you read that comment, upset them when they read somebody else's comment. And we tend to think of them as hate remarks or hateful or angry. And I did an entire podcast episode on understanding hatred, because there is love behind the hatred, if that makes sense. So if someone loves their race so much, their pure race, and someone threatens that, they will defend that which threatens what they love, the way we would all defend that which threatens us. So behind that threatened, scared, fearful person, angry person, behind all that rage, something they love is being challenged. And they just, like a parent seeing someone about to harm their child, they will resort to violence to protect that which they love, whether it be their right to bear arms or whether it be, the right, I'll openly speak about this. My sister is extremely racist, and it just boggles my mind when she tries to dictate who her children can and cannot date, the same way my parents did that to us. And yet my sister feels that her prejudice is somehow superior to my mother's prejudice, so it's this very strange hierarchy in our heads, and we're all trying to protect that which we love. We're full of love, but in the West, we tend to associate love with attachment. And so we get very attached to that which we love. And when someone threatens that which we believe, that which we love, we feel personally threatened. And so we attack. It's even they attack. And I don't know if this makes any sense, because I'm trying to, suppress like a whole discussion into this quick answer, but even that attack is an act of love. It's misplaced, perhaps. It's blind, probably, but it's still love. And so when I see those comments, I try to look right through the hatred, the anger, the animosity, through directly to that love, and just see they love something so much, and to which I can relate. There's a lot that I love as well. And so I see where it's coming from. And that immediately, it doesn't mean I like reading it any less, but it moves me from a place of judgment to a place of compassion. And then if I respond, I'm responding from a place of compassion rather than a place of anger, hatred, animosity, and just keeping that vicious loop going. Does any of that make sense at all?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a really great question. And that's why it came up.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Very quickly, love or music is one of my love languages, and I would like to know the name of that artist again, because I'd like to hear that song.
Clay Davidson.
Clay Davidson. Okay.
Yeah, it's a country song. Again, I'm not a huge country fan. I lived with a country singer for a while, and she turned me on to country music. But, and it's funny that music is your love language, and I don't know if it's perhaps from being on the spectrum or misophonia. I associate music. I call it noise. I'm not a fan. My friends who love music, and my best friend is in the choir at her church. She sends me lyrics because I'm all about reading lyrics, but to me, silence is my favorite sound. Mm. Now, that doesn't diminish or minimize at all how much music means to you or how much love you can express through music. If nothing else, Clay Davidson proves my point exactly, that that's one really powerful way. And I don't know if he wrote it, he sang it, but there are so many love languages out there and expressions, and we need to figure out what ours is and what other people's are. Because I did an episode, a podcast episode about nonviolent communication, and how our feelings really express a met or an unmet need. And so if we figure out what the unmet need is, then we can communicate that rather than express the feeling. You know what I mean? If someone feels really jealous, instead of expressing jealousy, they figure out what is my unmet need right now. And maybe it's a need for a sense of security or comfort or validation. And then they can explain that that's what they need rather than express the jealousy, which is just destructive and ends up in this vicious loop of never actually addressing what my unmet need is, but rather blaming the other person and making them at fault. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Clay Davidson, I can't recommend you look him up and see I don't know what else he sings. That's the only song I know, but it's a beautiful one. Well, thank you guys so much for this offering.
As always, it was wonderful.
Wonderful. Amazing. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
Are you muted?
And Jimmy, as always, what the way you back it up and what you add to it is incredible. I want to thank Timber so much for being with us today and for sharing his wisdom. I want to thank the musicians who give us so much in the way of this program every single week. I certainly want to thank everybody who tithes and donates to Awakening Ways, because it's because of you we're able to be here each and every week. I want to remind everyone that prayer is the most important thing that we on the Soul Support team do. And that if you have any need for prayer at all, please contact us. Let us know. Simply go online and send us an email to awakeningways.org and put your prayer request in the subject line. And all of us will be blessed to pray for you for a week. And when I say all of us, there are 5 ministers and 6 practitioners who will be doing prayer work for you during the coming week. And then if you need to continue it, you can let us know. And if you have someone that you want prayer work for, other than yourself, remember to ask them and get their permission first, because we have no right to interfere in anyone else's life if they're not willing to have us do so. I'm not going to talk about anything coming up in the future, because we're going to be getting to that in just a couple of minutes with the business meeting. I want to invite everyone to stay and help us continue with this work by being here with us. And if you have any questions or any new business that you need to bring up, do so. And for right now, let me just leave you with this benediction to close out the service before we turn it over to the board. I know that each of us is blessed. Each of us is filled with that unconditional love that God is, that unconditional love that says, I will never leave you. You cannot reject me. Meister Eckhart, the wonderful German mystic, said, God is still at home. It's we who've run away. And when we learn that lesson, we run back home, and God is waiting with open arms to embrace us and draw us in and welcome us. That is the meaning of the story, the parable of the prodigal son. We are so blessed. We are continually blessed. Whatever is going on in our lives, we continue to have the blessing of unconditional love of God, with all that intends, all of the infinite life, all of the infinite love, all of the infinite joy, all of the infinite perfection and abundance of the divine is ours right here and right now, because of that unconditional love. Knowing that that is true, we simply accept it and carry it with us this coming week, being the fonts of unconditional love that God intends us to be. We are so blessed, and so it is. Amen.